Dossier Project, and today we wanted to talk about another current topic. And this seems to be happening a lot. I don't know, I've been calling it men being Me Too'd. So recently, Russell Brand, which some people may know, he's a British comedian, actor, presenter, recently become an activist. He has a YouTube channel where he speaks about political issues and things like that. And recently, I think it was about 3-4 weeks ago, there were some women who made some accusations. There was an article written about him in the UK on 2 different newspapers. And as a consequence, the following day, he got, not the following day, but the following days, there was pressure put onto different social media platforms, and YouTube demonetized him. You know, he was dropped in different things on tour. So there's a lot of different effects that he experienced because of these 2 articles that came out. Similarly, maybe Johnny Depp, it reminded me of, you know, with the first article that came out. So we thought it was a very apropos topic, and we wanted to talk about, you know, that. And yeah, so who wants to get started? Anything you want to share about?
My first thought, and I think it seems obvious to me, at least at this point in my in my journey, is why now? You know, like why? I think Russell Brand himself made a lot of really good points, which is he had a very promiscuous past. He was very open about being an addict. He was very open about being promiscuous, being a sex addict, and having certain behaviors towards women. You know, and all of those behaviors are 20 years ago. He's, you know, since changed his lifestyle significantly, is married, has 2 children, you know, acts very, very differently. That doesn't excuse any past behavior that may be wrong, but it's, you know, why now? You know, after all the time that has gone by, and him rehabilitating his life and doing all of these good things. And clearly he's making some very, very strong statements and exposing things about the government, about the media, about the way, you know, things work in our country. And now, 20 years later, even after the Me Too movement, you know, he could have been Me Too'd when all those other men were being Me Too. Like, why now is he being Me Too'd and not before?
A little devil's advocate with it, because you know there are some people who have been arguing that these women, they were too scared before, you know, to come forward. They felt they weren't going to be listened to, you know, and yeah, the Me Too thing has been going on for a few years, but I think that's, you know, some people are saying, well, they were too scared before, so that's why they now went to the newspaper for journalists to be able to help them tell their story.
Well, and I think that's a dangerous precedent we're seeing in situations like this, where instead of having like criminal cases brought forward from evidence, first it's starting in the media with claims and accusations, and then someone gets demonetized, they lose their platform. So they're kind of cut off at the knees, because once you put something out there, everyone, you know, there's like 2 camps. There's one who's just going to believe whatever's out there. And then I think there's people who are going to pause and say, okay, we're going to watch the same process and pattern happen again. And it's just difficult to tell like what the actual truth is. But I think for someone being accused, it's not really fair to have someone be able to say something and then the media runs with it. And then law enforcement comes behind and says, you know what, I think we have a case here. Because then it's you know, it's really trial by media, which is so dangerous, because I mean, the writing's kind of on the wall. Like as soon as you're accused, you're kind of done. You know, whether you're proven innocent at the end of the day, it's out there. You know, people can't help but see you with this stain that people have made all these really serious accusations, have made these serious accusations. So I think it just puts people in a really difficult position, because the whole innocent until proven guilty, that's done. You know, so no one, you know, people don't really stand a chance, or they don't really have a fair playing field with which to defend themselves. And then on top of that, they're silenced, you know, they're deplatformed, and it's very difficult for them to actually defend themselves, because, you know, a big storm is already kind of brewed against them, and they're kind of like fighting this uphill battle all the time. So I don't know what happened, but I just looking at the media process, I think that's the biggest issue is that it's being media driven first and then law enforcement's coming behind it. And it's not being driven by evidence, it's being driven by accusations first.
Well, yeah, it's like all hearsay, right? So, like these articles that are being written with the words by the women are being presented as fact and as truth. It's not going, well, this is potential. And like you're saying, as soon as that, seed is dropped, it kind of, there's doubt there. And you're never going to look at the person like the same way because you're always going to wonder, well, did they not? So it's really not fair on the person. Like you said, it should go to why didn't the women go to the police? Why didn't they go, if that's where they should be going or to a therapist or something, but not to the media, not to a journalist. Like why?
Speaking of the women, they're putting aside the truth or not truth of their stories and their claims. To me, one thing that really stands out is how unfair it is that they get to tell their story to the media and it gets blasted this way. And then as a result of like this sort of vicious cycle that society has, everyone piles on the accusee the accused, piles on the accused in order to like sort of preemptively punish them, or like just in case they are guilty, we better punish them. So there's a problem with that. Thank you for speaking to that, Michelle. But one thing that really strikes me is like I work with people who I look in their eyes and they tell me about experiences being sexually abused. And it's horrible and it's life altering for someone to go through that. And the people I talk to don't get to go to the media and have their story told because nobody cares. Nobody cares that you and something happened with some relative sometime in your childhood when you're just a nobody. It's like the celebrity status is what gets the attention, but it's not like, quote, fair in society. If we care this much about abuse, there's other things we should be doing as a society. We should be supporting law enforcement to do a better job of investigating claims. We should have more of a, investigate all claims. Sure. Like a, not necessarily jump to believe all women, but definitely shouldn't be dismiss all women. So it just bothers me, the injustice as well of that there's like, I don't know, a certain small sector of society where this happens to or can happen to, and it creates a perverse motivation for women to claim, or anybody, women or men, to claim that somebody who's in a position of power or celebrity or money or whatever did this bad thing, because that gets media and then the pile-on effect and drama and maybe book deals and podcasts and all this stuff. Or you need to create and make it this big thing because all these, like many people in the world have experienced abuse and trauma, but their stories aren't worth putting on the front page of the newspaper. And I mean, that's unfortunately just true. It is true. The rest of us don't want to read about somebody we don't know, experiencing some difficult thing. But like, that's not right. It's not right that some people get to jump to the front of the newspaper and then get all this power and might thrown behind it as a result of the media sensation.
Just to add to that, I think to Danielle's question, it's like, why now? And also just why? Like, why, like who stands to gain? I guess this is the super skeptic in me, that like what Michelle was alluding to, what easier way to take down someone, than just say, she said, he said. There is no way something that happened, whatever, how many long years ago, eyewitness testimony is one of the least reliable things. And, if there really was an issue or problem or something, for sure, prosecute it to the full extent of the law and so forth, but a lot of things like especially in male female dynamics, a lot of things are just, they're, maybe not rising to the level of criminality, but it's a lot of miscommunication or, I'm not saying who knows, Russell Brand could have done everything, etc. It's regardless of the truth. I'm not there. Even if you ask, I'm sure Russell has a point of view, the other women have a point of view, and then there's the reality of it, and I think what's problematic is like, I guess the process I said as well, but some people say, well, enough women coming out, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's also the reality too, that there are smoke machines. there are people that are purposely fanning the fire for this, because there are other reasons why that they want to see him go down, and this is one of, for better or worse, or just this is seems the reality of the society that we live in now. A woman from nowhere can make up anything and say anything about a man that happened any amount of years ago. If he has, like Leah said, fame, celebrity, and so forth, that'll catch fire, newsworthy, and probably, the women will go and try to make a career and be a whistleblower or do their podcast or create their books. We've seen all of that, follow the money, follow the power, and who stands to benefit?
Something that I've been interested in, and I know we've all been around, ladies, for this past, I don't know, year, maybe 2 years ago, where there was another law that was put in place that allowed crimes from 20 years before to be brought up now. And I think that's such an interesting process. Like, why pass? I mean, I don't know the right answer. Granted, somebody does something like this 20 years ago. It's not like the effects on these women's lives don't last forever, or like potentially, like, there are experiences that affect them forever and they'll have the effects of that. But it's interesting that we could want to punish someone far beyond after they've repented, reconciled, built themselves differently, made amends, like through, I mean, most people, and I don't know if this is the case with Russell Brand, this is a complete hypothesis, but he's been very well known to have worked through his addiction. Part of the 12 steps is to make amends, whether that's within yourself or, to people that you've hurt, in order to overcome that and get your life to a new place. Again, I don't know the answer, but like, is there a statute of limitations on these things? I mean, why do we put the laws in place to begin with? Do we put the law in place because there's people that are doing things to hurt other people that don't yet have a conscience about those things, and they need to be stopped, and they need to have a moment of reflection, and they need to, the community needs to kind of give them a checks and balances? And if that's the purpose of jail, and you go to jail, you pay your dues, and you reconcile, ideally, and never do it again, like, why 20 years later are we passing laws after people maybe have already gone through that reconciliation process to now punish someone? Like, is it just spite? Is it just hate? Is it control? Is it power? Why are we doing that? I mean, if he was still doing it, if he was still having these infringements, if this was still a problem, and again, I don't know the answer, but I raised the question because, again, I think it points to, like, why now? Why him? Why in this situation? And I agree with you, Linda. I think it's very clear he's, standing for specific things, and there are people with power that, they know very clearly which strings to pull. And as soon as you make a sex claim, that's it. We've seen all of the effects. He's been booted off of every major media outlet, his publisher, all of his platforms except for Rumble. And that's days.
I mean, gotta give him tribute. There was like when this all came out, he made a statement about what's about to happen, what's coming out. He made a statement about it, denying anything that was, he was being accused of. Then he kind of went dark for a week, and I thought, oh, like there was no message from him. And since then, he's just been going back as normal, doing his thing. So I guess he's having, the legal team or whatever take care of the legalities. And I mean, there hasn't been, I've been looking, there hasn't been more articles or more news or anything, because I think it's just so obvious how ridiculous this is, that people, are coming and saying things happened back in 2006, 2013. Like, how are you going to prove that, at this point? Like, how are you, there's no video, is there video footage? Are there eyewitnesses, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they'll have a very hard time to really come up with anything. So, this, I don't know, hopefully for him, this is, it'll roll over and it won't be more, but it's definitely something that's very concerning, I think, nowadays, for especially men, or it seems for men, because I haven't seen this happening with women, is that if a man has a certain status, a certain reputation, a certain influence, reach wide, they're really susceptible to just being cut off at the knees through a few statements by some women who can really say anything they want, and it sounds, salacious and makes the headlines. So thank you for another interesting conversation. We're going to continue looking at current events and see what we can talk about. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel and and we look forward to sharing more with you in the following weeks.